Welcome to Mystical Messages. I am Hilary Harley, your podcast host. I am a soul guide and astrologer. Mystical Messages is your podcast gateway to discover and learn about the realm beyond the veil, including all things intuitive, metaphysical, and the healing arts. To learn more about my work or to book a session with me, please visit hilaryharley.com. If you would like to read my monthly forecast, you may find the full written transcript for all astrology episodes on my website. That way, if you hear something and want to re-listen to a forecast or to check a date of a cosmic event, you may find it on the written monthly forecast on hilaryharley.com. Today, I am so delighted to have my very special guest, Scott Grace, join me to understand more about the topic of mindful masculinity. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, thank you. I'm excited to be with you.
Yes, this is when I learned about your work. I was like, that is a topic that I want to explore on my show for sure. So before I get too far into the interview with you, Scott, I just want to make sure people know how to reach you. I will do that throughout the our conversation because I just want people to have access to you. It's www.scott, songs.com. So, mindful masculinity. I love the tagline for a book for men and the women who love them. And also the caption on the cover. If Dave Chappelle and Eckhart Tolle teamed up to write a book for men, this would be it. Hysterical and enlightening. I loved every page. Really, really amazing. And it's so timely given what's going on in our national and global landscapes. The tug, I don't want to call it a tug of war, but the tug and the tension between the masculine and the feminine. Tell me and tell us how you came to write this book and what your background is, a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been very passionate about my own personal growth since I was 16, 17 years old. Therapy, 12 steps, Course in Miracles, just, and all of it brought me to my gift for writing. And whatever I learn, I like to share. It reinforces it, it helps others, and it helps me get what I am learning. So it's a helpful form of integrating my lessons, and it seems to help people, and I have fun doing it. And I grieve whenever I'm done with a book. Oh, what am I going to do with my life?
So what number book is this for you?
This is book number 4.
Wow. Impressive. And so what led you to this particular topic? I mean, do you have a background in psychology, or is it just...
Yes. Yeah. And I also have been in men's groups and doing men's workshops for a long time. And I had a deep-seated sense of inadequacy as a man. I picked partners who would basically reinforce the judgments I already had about myself as a man. And I had a nice case in my head against my masculinity, against my well-being and enoughness as a man. So the book started to come to me in spite of all that. I started to just write some essays, put some things up on Facebook, and gradually I developed the confidence to take it on and to realize that the book would heal me as I dive into it, and that I had something valuable to say to the average man. I called my my reader, my target audience, Joe six pack and Manny mainstream. And I did everything I could to condense my wisdom into a language that the average Joe would relate to and understand. It turns
So,
out the audience is about 60 to 70% women so far, and I'm not surprised. I may even change the subtitle to A Book for Women and the Men Who Want to Keep Them.
oh, yeah. Yeah, it's very timely. In my own life, my daughter is going through something right now with her partner of several years. So they're hammering out, the masculine, feminine, and the division of labor and the awareness of impacts for each of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, what talk about the tenets of the book? Some of the primary themes and points you would like to make.
I think the book is a calling, an inspiration, an encouragement for men to look under their hoods, to get interested and curious about what makes them tick, to step back from the programming and cultural conditioning and get to the core. Who am I? What's this life about? What brings me happiness? Certainly not what society has told us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like I'm having a heart to heart with whoever reads it. And I fillet myself open, share all the learning experiences, mistakes, stumblings and fumblings of my own life. And, that's my favorite way to learn, is to have somebody share their journey with me and their heart and their ignorance, and then eventually some wisdom that comes out of that. That's my style. And it scares me every time I reveal another part of my life. It's scary. And that fear is the edge where boys become men, where masculinity is honed. It always involves courage to face fear.
Right, right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, and I think right now we're doing some collective shadow work as a nation and as a globe, and so it sounds like what you're talking about, stepping into this edge. There was a study recently from the Harvard Department of Education and Psychology about how fear and excitement are two sides of the same coin. And so it's really interesting because if you think of it, being a toddler, you're excited, you're driven, but you're also scared about what that new skill is going to open up. But there's this drive. And so it's really interesting to hear you talk about the fear, which I also, with my clients, I talk about that being false evidence appearing real. And we can either get trapped in the fear, or we can allow the opportunity of the fear to propel us to look inward. So you say that it's a fairly humorous book. Is that your writing style? Is that who you are?
Yeah, humor is integrated into my teaching, writing. I once was a stand-up comic. I opened up for Robin Williams and Dana Carvey and a number of people that you've seen in the movies and television. So that humor is just how I roll. I love just taking profound stuff and finding a way to get it deeper into the body mind through play, through playful expressions, combined with vulnerable, honest sharing. That's my favorite thing in the world, is to find humor and grit and guts in my heart.
Well, and
there's a chapter in the book about how I haven't had sex for 12 years and what I'm doing with it.
that can
Well,
certainly open up a lot of fun.
yes.
Um, so yeah, I love the idea of work being play. You know, they're both a four-letter word, and
Mm.
playfulness, work does not have to be all drudgery and nose to the grindstone. It can certainly be a playful journey and work and as joy. So that's really interesting to hear that you cast this work in a playful and humorous light. Um, so, how long have you been on this journey exploring what brought you to this particular topic? You said you've written three other books. Was it a particular situation or relationship that catalyzed you to write this book?
I believe the relationship I was in with with my daughter's mother, which lasted 10 years, really brought up the gunk. It brought up the gunk. I'm telling you, we had a child through the gates of birth control, said yes, yes, yes. And at the same time that my financial pressure was increasing in my life, my gigs were disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
And it brought me face to face with this sense that I'm inadequate. And now I have to be a provider. I crashed.
Mm-hmm.
And during the crash, that's when the book started to come through.
Mm-hmm.
Because every book I've ever written, everything I've ever put out, it starts as medicine for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
eventually I realized I think I'm writing for myself and others.
Yeah. My guest is Scott Grace. His book is Mindful Masculinity, a book for men and the women who love them. So talk about some of your other books. Are they at all related to this topic, or they're just part of, the outcome of each segment of your journey?
Very much the latter. I've never approached this topic before. I've as a healer, as a guide, I've attracted more women than men.
Mm-hmm.
I I tend to I'm able to help people, anyone who's ready, get in touch with the deep stuff, whether it be deep grief, whatever's behind the scenes. It's just my gift. And it seems that up until now, women have been the ones who have the most permission in the culture to feel their feelings. And I've been happy to do that. But then something turned, and it was like my psyche said, I'm ready to work with men.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I'm
it's
ready.
so needed. I mean, that's what drew
Mhm.
me to have you as a guest on the show was the real dire need for this to be addressed. What are some of your healing modalities, if I may ask?
Sure. I usually get around to tapping,
Mm-hmm.
EFT. I channel guides. I connect with the person's higher self. Inner child work is a big one for me. And anybody who's open to it, I usually end my sessions by channeling a song for that person's journey.
Oh, that's so
And it all
cool.
gets recorded. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And so in your work, I mean, how did you come to be a healer of, a channel? Was there a particular moment where, you jumped off the stand up or the artistic train and decided, I need to pursue this? Because I know a lot of healers have um, either a crisis or a catalyst. I mean, I know for me, I had chronic sinus infections that opened, this is like 30 years ago, that broke me open and my third eye and the whole thing. So, was there a particular incident or was it just a series of events?
just a gradual opening, very gradual. I'm drawn to this moment in 1987 where I was in Tucson Airport. I had about 2 hours before my flight took off, and I just took out my guitar and started playing, and people started to gather and listen. Another guitarist came over and joined me. An airport security man came over. I thought he was going to tell us to stop, and he said, "Are you available to play here on a regular basis?" So
Oh,
it
that's
was
so
really
cool.
beautiful. And I was doing everything from the Beatles, Chicago, Beach Boys, whatever I had in my repertoire. I've been accused of being a human jukebox. I just, they just keep coming. So what happened was I started to feel this prompting,
Mm-hmm.
sing Amazing Grace. And my doubting mind said, no, this is not that kind of crowd. We don't want to get spiritual. And the voice said, sing Amazing Grace now. So I did, and everyone joined. It was lovely, pretty non secular song. And this man came over wearing a suit and tie with tears flowing down his eyes. It was a very unusual experience. He looked like a lawyer. You just don't see these kinds of people crying in the airport. And he said to me, I want you to know that my mother just died. I'm in town to attend her funeral.
Oh,
And at the funeral, they played the song Amazing Grace, which is her favorite song. And and he said, when I was walking past you just now and I heard Amazing Grace, I felt her with me. And I heard her say, I'm really okay. Everything's great. You'll have a great life. So that was the first time I remember hearing an inner voice and just trusting it. And it
mm-hmm.
opened the portals because I started
Mm-hmm.
hearing that voice a lot. And at a certain point, I heard and felt the personality of Jesus
Mm-hmm.
talking to me like a brother walking down the street.
Wow.
And he just started to answer my deepest questions and eventually started to answer them for others as well.
That's amazing. So let's talk about how music is a way in, because that seems to
Mm.
be one of your primary um, tools. And I mean, certainly it's been a way in for spirit to come to you. How do you use that? I mean, let's talk about when a client comes to you, how are they presenting and how would you use music with them?
Well, as I said before, I usually end the session with a song
Mm-hmm.
I'd be happy to sing you one. The whole experience of being a channel for words and music is otherworldly. I don't
Mm-hmm.
understand it, but it happens. So it's the icing on the cake. It puts everything that we talked about in the session together. Sometimes I'll do it a little earlier if I sense that they need extra help getting out of their head, because it is, it's like it can just take people straight to where the action is and straight
Right,
out of the logical
right,
brain.
right. So when somebody comes to you, let's talk about a man coming to you. I mean,
Mm.
what are they typically presenting you with?
My wife wants me to get some help. She's thinking of leaving me. I don't know how to get real with her. I don't know how to get real with myself. I'm recognizing that I'm stuck in my head and that I've been trying to prove my masculinity and be good enough. And I just have lost who I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and this, I do so understand, men are on this treadmill of having, societal pressures, produce, 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 and be the provider. And it doesn't afford, outside of a 9 to 5 time to be able to develop or self-care, to really reach for self-care and to explore growth. So what are some of the recommendations that you recommend for men in those situations?
Fail, fail, fail. Get down on your knees with a broken heart and start to pray.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't dare work with a man or a woman that's on the road to success.
Interesting.
There's a line in one of my poems, perhaps you are on the fast track of success, constantly driven to be great, better, best. You're a mover, a shaker, a real-time achiever. You're a real self-made man, a dazzling diva. You're rich and you're famous and you make quite a splash. You're on top of the world and you're rolling in cash. You drive the right car. You've married the right spouse. Today, lunch with Oprah. Tomorrow, the White House. But at night, insecurity pays you a call because you know any time that you could lose it all. Your shrink says to rest and your spouse sure agrees. Your doctor says ulcers, take 14 of these. You know you should slow it down sooner or later, but your foot is just glued to that accelerator. Your ego consoles. Well, at least you're successful. It's a sign of success to be constantly stressful. You've made it to prime time and everyone loves you. But your self-esteem's based on what others think of you. And opinions can change in the blink of an eye, which is why you need meds just to sleep and get by.
That says it all. I actually was married to somebody like that. And I think it's just such a given in the world we live in, and that's a significant part.
Just rhymed. You didn't realize it. It's just such a given in the world that we live in.
That's awesome. I am. I'm on the Scott Grace train. My guest is the inimitable Scott Grace. His book is Mindful Masculinity, a book for men and the women who love them. You can reach him at www.scott, SCOTTSONGS, scottsongs.com. I mean, that reminds me exactly of what you're talking about to Leonard Cohen, which is actually taken from Rumi, where there's a crack. That's where the light gets in. And so Leonard Cohen took that to new places Rumi could only dream about. But
I'm getting chills, Hilary, because this morning as I was jogging down by the lake, I was having a conversation with Jesus, and he was saying, "We love your cracks. Your cracks are your ministry. Bless your cracks. That's how you're such a good teacher. If you were perfect and uncracked, people wouldn't relate to you,
right?
And you wouldn't be able to relate to people."
No, it's so true. It's the vulnerabilities, and, everybody from Carl Jung, Rumi, Leonard Cohen, all of these people and figures that we can refer to have really talked about the imperfections. And that's, the vulnerabilities are absolutely what brings us to our knees, but it also shows us by looking at them and by working with them, that's the way in, and it's also the way out. So do you use Jung at all in your work or shadow work?
I believe that Carl really was onto something with the shadow work. And I do. I mean, when it's really a matter of who's open. Who's open? I'm here. I've done my shadow work. I continue to be humbled, and I can create a safe space for anyone who wants to go there. But I can't I can't make somebody go somewhere that they're not already interested in.
Right. Right.
And I do specialize in working with spiritual people who are not facing their shadow.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I have a fun rendition of Carly Simon's You're So Vain. I'll just sing a little verse for you. You walked into the ashram like you were walking into a cloud. Your hair strategically shaved right off your head. Your aura so well endowed. You climbed aboard your astral plane as you laid your body down. And all your friends thought that you were enlightened. You were enlightened and you're so light. You probably think you don't have a shadow. You're so light. Bet you think you don't have a shadow. Don't you? Don't you? It goes on.
That's awesome. That is the first time somebody's ever sung or played an instrument on Mystical Messages. So thank you for that. We're breaking some ground today. And two things come to mind. You talked about You're So Light as the refrain, and you must know the work if you've, dabbled in the shadow or you use the shadow work. Debbie Ford's seminal work,
Dark Side of the Light Chasers.
Jinx, you owe me a soda. But yeah, it's, that
she broke ground. Boy, did she break ground.
Yeah, because people think, especially in the worlds we inhabit, going from one modality to another modality to another modality, they're constantly stretching and reaching for the next healer solution. And it's not external. It's never been external. It's always internal. So can you talk a little bit about that when you work with a man, or do you do men's groups or just one-on-one?
I've been doing one-on-one. It's my favorite thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So what you just said, that your solution, the medicine, is not external.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. However, I love seeing healers. I see healers the way people see massage therapists. If I'm going to be on a table being nurtured by somebody who's caring about my heart and my body, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't expect miracles.
Right.
I know I've got to do the work. Somebody can come along and give me Shakti or Kundalini or whatever, but then it's really my job. What am I going to do with it? Am I going to stay in my story or use the energy that a healer gives me to catapult forward?
Right. I think that's really, in my experience working with clients, astrology clients, I hold up the mirror. I am the reflector, to show you the path forward, the blessings and the challenges, but I can't get in there and do the work for you. So if you have a voice in your head that's continuously telling you, you're not good enough or some such thing, it really, the bio reprogramming, that's outside of my wheelhouse. And how you reprogram yourself is the client's work. And I can send you to people who can help you with that and retrain your brain. But it's really, so are you helping to identify the cracks, so to speak, and the way out?
Yeah. Let's really shine a light together on how this voice that seeks to improve you is actually scolding you and holding you back from the most important thing you can possibly do on the planet, which is to be kind. And that kindness starts with self.
Right. and not this brazen masculine effigy that people are constantly taught. Or, hopefully that's beginning to shift. Do you see a shift with young men
Yeah.
or even older men?
Yes. It's been happening. And maybe Robert Bly was the father of introducing vulnerability to the collective masculine consciousness in the 1980s, but it's been blossoming. It depends on where you look. Of course, if you're in a bubble of cynicism and you read the news, you're going to see over and over again the recycling of what people call toxic masculinity, because it still exists. It's a big world out there. There's the best of times and the worst of times and everything in between.
Right.
But I pretty much immersed myself into the bubble of transformation. So I just see it everywhere.
Yeah, it reminds me of when I was going through a very pivotal time. It was very dark, but I didn't realize how transformational it was going to be. And there was a book by Elizabeth Lesser, who founded the Omega Institute, and the book is called Broken Open. And it's more along that line of the Rumi and the Leonard Cohen theme, where, when you're brought to your soul's knees, when your soul's brought to its knees, that's really where the work begins. So can you just talk about the toughest part? I mean, the biggest challenge that you've encountered, maybe not one, but
personally,
like
mine.
Or no, really
my
dealing with
night.
I mean, that, and when you've been dealing with clients, I mean, some of the challenges, that is there like a theme with a challenge, or is it, one in particular?
The themes that arise are the ones that I'm working with, the ones that I have just completed. It's a beautiful thing, the way that the universe works. And when I'm committed to healing myself and helping others at the same time, there is never an accident. Every client who comes to me has something to teach me, something to show me, and something to learn from me. And I would say working with the inner critic has become my specialty, because it has been the crucible that brought me to my knees. And so me learning to deal with Mr. Critic, it's one of my superpowers now.
Yeah.
Because I've walked the journey.
For sure. And I mean, the joyful aspects, the most favorite part of working with clients.
I love when I'm able to, and I do this as often as somebody allows me to step in with my empathic abilities and my intuitive abilities and walk with them as them through their pain and articulate what they're going through in a way that is deeper than what they've been able to face with their own personal odyssey and their honesty. It's like, so I can like just slip down in there and walk with them. And the first thing that they feel is the relief of, I'm not alone. I am being seen and respected and felt by another person.
Right.
And this is where, when people say you gotta find it inside, that's true. But boy, can we help each other.
No, it's so true.
Yeah.
What is the best way somebody can prepare for a session with you? I mean, I assume they're coming at a crisis point, especially the guys. I mean, I would hope there might be some that would say, be ahead of the curve and say, I need some fine tuning here. And I'm going to go to Scott for some help and direction.
That happens.
I'm glad to hear that.
I would say reading the book Mindful Masculinity, because the one thing that needs to be established is safety. And people can start creating safety with themselves in my presence by reading my story. And the book is sort of a masculinity memoir. So there's a lot of self-revealing in it. And it starts to build trust. This guy is being real with me.
Right.
I can be real with him.
Right. Right. The authentic voice is so important in our own, just daily journey. Am I being real with myself? And if you're being real with yourself, then your chances are you're going to be real with other people. My guest is Scott Grace. His book is Mindful Masculinity, a book for men and the women who love them. You can find Scott at www.scottsongs, plural, SCOTTSONGS, scottsongs.com. So I am going to go out on a limb here. I'm assuming you have people that work with you virtually, not just in person. Okay. I know that world changed for me a few years ago during COVID, where I was able to move to a dream location for me. I'm in the Berkshires of Massachusetts because I no longer had to live in the city because my whole practice went online. So that's great that you don't have to be living in the town next door to you or a few miles away. Anybody can reach you. And are there any special, other than your own book, are there any special resources, tools, classes, teachers you would suggest that either were instrumental in your journey or that you feel somebody should read that really can help them or avail of themselves, not just read?
I've been so impacted by so many books and teachers. It's overwhelming to even think about the list. But I would say the greatest thing I could possibly inspire a man to do is to take the new warrior training adventure put on by the Mankind Project, which is an initiation weekend where you get to face your shadow and exercise courage and learn to trust men. And it was life-changing for me. And I love getting men into that work.
And can you just say that again? The warrior?
Sure. They can look up the new warrior training adventure.
Okay.
And it's about taking the courage that a man or a woman needs on the battlefield and channeling it towards rigorous self-honesty and emotional healing.
Okay.
So you are going to go deep, and it's an adventure, and it's scary as hell, and you might want to leave during the weekend, but definitely stay.
Okay. And are those held all over or in one particular?
Yeah, every major city in the world, I think now.
Oh, wow. Okay. That is a terrific resource. You don't have to fly to Chicago or Sedona. You can do it in your own.
Sedona. Hey, but there is a women's program put on by the wives of the men who started it called The Wise Women Within. And obviously I can't speak for that, but I've heard great things about it.
That's great to know. And I'm sorry, but our time is really rapidly coming to a close here. And I always ask my guests, if you could change the world for better in some way, how would you change it?
I would give everyone a magic wand that has the ability to change the lenses in which you're seeing. Anytime you feel hurt, pain, sadness, grief, separation, loneliness, you have this magic wand, and it changes your thinking. It changes the way you're viewing life. And it makes you realize that no matter what you're blowing out of proportion, everything is perfect. Everything is in divine order. So this divine order magic wand, you wave it and you see the beauty, you see the cracks as perfect, whether in yourself or in the political process. You just instantly feel peace because you've changed your perception. What's more important than that? Because you can't control the world, but you can learn to change the way you're seeing the world and bring your nervous system to peace.
That is absolutely beautiful. And nobody has ever said anything like that in terms of, how they would change the world for the better. And I know that our perception is absolutely everything. And especially given the state of our world right now, it really is helpful to remember that our perception is everything and all is in divine order and being divinely guided. So that brings us to the end of this episode of Mystical Messages. It's been a joy to have you, Scott, on to talk today about your book, Mindful Masculinity. You can reach Scott at www.scottsongs.com to learn more about my work or to book a session with me. Please visit hilaryharley.com. If you would like to read my monthly forecast or check dates of planetary events and cycles, you may find the full written transcript for all astrology episodes on my website. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Please join me again in 2 weeks when I will bring you the astrology forecast for the month ahead. I wish you many blessings as you journey forward.